What's happening, everybody? It's your boy Hardcorn, and today we're going to be talking about Stellar Blade and if it's going to be right for you. Stellar Blade is an extremely varied experience. It feels like one of those early 2000s ecchi titles that was given more help and a higher budget. Like I see with the whole concept of there's a pretty lady to get you in the door, and in some cases there's a solid game inside. With titles like those in the past, that's where all the money went, and the rest of the game falls shy of the mark. Stellar Blade rounds it out by having the pretty woman at the door that ushers you into a world of hurt. This game is like a fusion of Sekiro and Nier Automata. The world itself is highly detailed, and it really shows that Shift Up wanted to make a strong showing on all cylinders for their first major console foray. Stellar Blade houses many concepts and does them all pretty well, yet they could be better if they leaned more into one subject. This game feels like it was made by a fan of these types of games, and it really does show. Stellar Blade has a lot of platforming and climbing segments to get around the overworld. For the most part, it's enjoyable to climb around the geometry and explore. Thankfully, they make it very rewarding to do that. Eve's out here hopping around like Jumping Flash, and she's going nuts with it. If Shift Up wanted to make some sort of action platformer, I'd be all for it. After a certain point in the beginning of the game, you get to have an assortment of firearms with various functionality. Early on, I felt these are a little tough to use, but they put you into these sort of mandatory shooting segments. These are a drastic change from how the game normally plays, and are pretty easy. However, they are a good change and extremely fun. Shift Up also produces a shooting game, Nikki Goddess of Victory, which is one of the DLC, so they get to cut their teeth on making shooting experiences, and it shows. The 4 shooting segments are a Resident Evil Light situation, and I really want them to do some sort of third-person shooter. They put all of their eggs in the combat basket, and it really does show. General combat around the world of Stellar Blade is a bit moment to moment. Eve is very fast and has invincibility options that can be cancelled into later in the game. Though, when you're going around to missions or finding items, you get to feel the stiffness in the combat. Dodging is very short, and you're primarily going to want to parry everything in your path. In one-on-one situations, this is fine. The moment Eve gets more than one enemy though, she starts to have some trouble. This is remedied by having AoE techniques you unlock that cost resources, but that is more or less an early game problem. You'll end up having all kinds of resources later on. When you get better with enemy and boss patterns, life gets that much easier and you can take more risk. Combat is primarily grounded, and they give you a single air combo with the Helm Splitter. It almost feels like lip service to the concept. However, Eve knows ball, and the fact that jumping avoids so many grounded strikes in the first place gives it an additional layer of depth in avoiding attacks, just like in Elden Ring. But like Elden Ring, death is of little consequence. Stellar Blade really wants you to succeed, so you can just try and try again. Most games have a walk back to the fight so you can think about what you did, but not here. Eve spawns right outside the arena, so you can try and try and try and try again. But people aren't playing Stellar Blade for such deep, nuanced sci-fi story, or rewarding and engaging gameplay. No, we're playing Stellar Blade because it's got a pretty woman on the cover. Eve herself does a very good job of getting players in the door for the way she looks alone. The game takes advantage of this and gives her 120 outfits with DLC included, so Eve can look her best even at the worst of times. A good part of the outfits look pretty good on her. However, many of them are recolors of the base outfit, so the 120 is actually more like 60, and you can't change the colors of them in the first place. Dressing her up is very limited, since you have access to a couple of accessories, hair, outfits, and that's about it. If you really wanted more customization, even further than that, you'd have to import her in a Blender or something. Hopefully, that's something that gets addressed in the sequel. It takes a sizable amount of resources and time to change Eve's clothes into something that's not the default. You're going to either work hard to get better so you can finish, or you're opening up a new tab and you're going to take the cheaper way out. This game costs $60 base and another $20 with the DLC. If you can get this game for cheaper in any other capacity, I would suggest doing so. The fun this game brings is certainly worth the time, but not the money. I would certainly love to see Shift Up make more games, and hopefully, the sequel of this game does follow through and be a much more expansive experience. It's a good game if you're willing to grasp it with both hands and not something else. It takes you as seriously as you want to take it. Thanks for stopping by and learning about Stellar Blade. If you made it this far, I hope you liked it, so you can go over there and subscribe, and down below, leave a comment with what you thought. And if you have any other questions about Stellar Blade, and as always, I'll see you on the next one. Bye everybody.